So yes, the first commandment is thou shalt not have other gods. And the second commandment is you shall not use the Lord's name in vain. And truth be told, if you can read really well, it's actually up on the screen. I forgot about it. You can't really see in this video here, but I don't know why that is. If it's the glare or it just looks like a guy holding a blurred out stone. So anyways, but yes, the answer is in your small catechism. And so yeah, as my slide says, let's jump to page 74 in your small catechism. I'm not there yet because that's not what my notes told me to do until now. So Sean, go ahead and read what's in that first box, or that one box.
Sabbath day by keeping it holy. What does this mean? We should fear and love God so that we do not despise preaching and His word, but hold it sacred and gladly hear and learn.
That's right. And so I think if I were reading this, the first question that would come to me is, what is the Sabbath day? I mean, what does it mean by Sabbath? I mean, I'm guessing you could guess what it is. Just without looking at the answer, what would you guess?
Every church day.
Yeah, every church day, which actually that's probably even a better answer than the one I was thinking of, which is every Sunday. Yeah, but let's go ahead and read what it says here at question 48 at the bottom of page 74. Who? Alexis.
48. What is the Sabbath day? In the Old Testament, God set aside the seventh day, Saturday, as a day of rest for His people to worship and to ponder. A, the power and goodness of God in His work of creation.
Yeah. And then go ahead and read that verse under there too.
Exodus 28 through 11. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath day to the Lord your God. For in 6 days the Lord hath made heaven and earth, the sea and all that is in them, and rested on the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy. Yeah. And if you recognize where that passage is from? It says Exodus 20, verses 8 through 11. Remember what Exodus chapter 20 is about? Bond says creation. Any other answers? Yeah, we talked about it in the first commandment, and so that was more than 2 weeks ago because we took a break. So 3 weeks ago. So in Exodus chapter 20, that's where the 10 Commandments were first revealed on the stones, like you saw in the first image of. That's right, it's over here. As you saw in the first image here, where you got Moses given the 10 Commandments. And so, so really, you saw there's a dot. I was going to say that's the third commandment with its fuller length. And I think if I remember right, there's actually, that one's a little longer than some of the other commandments, which is kind of interesting. So why did God have to do a little more explaining there? Well, as you read, it's
after you work 6 days, then you're supposed to rest on the 7th. The interesting thing is, like Alexis says, usually when you think of the Sabbath day, people tend to think of it as a church day, a day you go to church, which that's what the Jews would do. However, when I read the scriptures, and when you talk to a Jew, they'll say, when they say Sabbath day, they say the focus should be more about rest than it should be going to worship services. Now, it's not that you don't go to worship services on a Sabbath day, but the emphasis there is rest. And so it's interesting how even when you work for a business, or so say you get a job, whether you're working for someone or yourself, usually you take one of those days of a week off to rest. And a lot of times people prefer 2 days of rest, because then you have Saturday and Sunday, then you got your 5 work days in the middle. You can thank Henry Ford for that one. So, but I just find it interesting how the focus is on rest. And I think as Bob was trying to get at earlier, when it talks about how the Lord created the heavens and the earth in 6 days, and the 7th day he rested. So we have God being our example, how he even rested the 7th day. And so some people tell me, well, the struggle of working 7 days. I mean, some people want to work that 7th day to whether make ends meet, or it's just the way things work out. And some people say, no, you shouldn't do that, because then you're really saying you're being better than God because you're working 7 days. God didn't he work 6 days, 7 days, then why do you? But I don't know, you're talking to the guy who worked at a retail shop, and one of the days they had a hard time getting people for was Sunday. So I do my church thing in the morning, have an hour to have lunch, get changed, and then go off to work. And then between, I think, 1 and 10, I'd be working. So I have church in the morning and then work in the afternoon. And so that's just how my Sundays were for most of my college life. It definitely helped pay the bills, but because I had school throughout the middle of the week and then be working Saturday and Sunday, it never really felt like there was a day of rest. And so, but that's how I got through life. And I think that's just, if you ask me, that's how the Californian way of life. Because when I talk to others, I really can only speak for really more Missouri. But when I've been in other states, they seem to have this idea where, yeah, you can just work Monday through Saturday even and take Sunday off without a problem. But again, that was just not my experience, but at least my work was generous enough to let me have Sunday mornings off. So, although I think truth be told, most places are pretty quiet Sunday mornings. Like I really don't know who's working Sunday morning. I've seen landscapers work Sunday mornings in Southern California, which I don't know. No, I've never seen a landscaper work Sunday morning. That was a different one for me. But I guess maybe they themselves have a different day off. So a lot of times what I'm getting back to is you have one day off. So me as a pastor, because Sunday is my work day, while everyone else is, well, I don't want to say everyone, but while most people tend to take Sundays off, I'm working. And so Friday is my day off. So the only reason why I'd be working Fridays is if someone died or there was just some issue that was better cleared up sooner than later, such as funeral planning. That's the person who already died, but they're like, well, pastor, it's time to meet. Everyone's in town. Okay, well, we'll meet. So that's my whole spiel. I don't know. I guess the more I'm learning about this, I'm hoping everyone comes out mature in all these understandings, and they can be able to talk with someone else, whether they're a Jew or Seventh-day Adventists. I mean, say, well, scripture says we're supposed to take Saturday off, so we're gonna and worship that day, so that's what we're gonna do. Which I applaud them for that. Now, let me ask this question. I'd be surprised if you know, because I think most people don't know. Why do you think we worship Sundays now instead of Saturdays? Because really the Sabbath day, as it kind of says in parentheses here, what is the Sabbath day? The seventh day. Saturday, that's a translation of Sabbath day. So it makes sense. But why do you think, and truth be told, it's not in here. So if you're looking in the book, it's not going to be in there. And it probably should be in here. That's what I'm telling you. Having a discussion. Why do you, I'm guessing you guys don't have a clue.
I don't.
You know, I should have brought that image of Constantine. So he was Constantine the Great. If you guys can remember the guy with the shield that was told to put a cross where he saw in the sky by this conqueror, and that was in the 4th century, so roughly 350 years after Jesus was born. He was also a great influencer of getting the churches together and making sure they know what they believe, and through what I can figure out is after all their discussion, the Christians decided to worship on Sunday instead of Saturday. And my understanding from that was to finally separate the Jews who don't believe in Jesus from the Christians who do believe in Jesus. You can be a Jew and believe in Jesus, but you'd probably be just therefore by default going to the Roman Catholic Church is what was there at the time. There was only one church, so there was starting to be a drift, because you could say they've had 300 years to figure out if Jesus was the Christ or not. And so I guess from what I understand, just to have a distinctness of Christianity was they started worshiping on Sunday. And so that's where all that came from. Definitely very interesting. Now, so before then, Jews and Christians would always worship on the same day, sometimes even in the same place. You even hear that in the book of Acts, how there were these Jews who go into the temple to do their sacrifices as God told them to. But since AD 70, there was no temple in Jerusalem to do sacrifices anymore because it was burned down. And so, but that's nothing new to the Jews, because they've had to, when they were in exile, if you can remember that time period, when the Jews were taken from their land and then living in the Babylonian country, then they couldn't go to the temple that they worship. They had to do worship in their synagogues, which was originally created for a house of prayer, but then was turned into a house of worship because they couldn't go to the temple. Maybe that's way too much information for you, but there's a whole story to it all. Here's just a whole story to it all. So that's where I'm getting at. So Constantine the Great. So it's interesting that a king made this decision. Again, the focus we Christians hold on today is more, you take a 7th day off. But what's famous event happened on Sunday that Christians could relate to why they'd worship on Sunday? What day did Jesus rise from the dead? Sunday. Yeah. And so he died Friday. Saturday was a day of rest, so he rested in the grave that day, and then Sunday he rose from the grave. That was a time to celebrate that he rose from the grave on Sunday. So there's some symbolism in all that, but that's not why that's not the original reason why we worship on Sunday. See also 49. Oh, I see. Okay, so this concept of rest. Let's go ahead and read about it more in question 49. Sean? I want to go ahead and, so question 49 on the next page. And then you can, and then read through point B. So question 49 all the way to through point B.
What were some features of the Sabbath in the Old Testament? The Sabbath provided time for physical rest. Wait, do I read that?
Yeah, go ahead and read the Exodus. It's just another verse after the previous reading.
6 days you shall do your work, but on the seventh day you shall rest. Let your ox and your donkey may have rest, and the son of your servant, woman, and the alien may be refreshed. The Sabbath provided time for spiritual rest through worship, fellowship, and devotion to God's word and promises.
That's good. So that's interesting. So I know while a lot of people tend to think of going to Sunday worship can be work because you have to get out of your bed and travel to church and make sure you look good and got showered and usually well groomed. I know there's some churches they're like, whatever it takes to get to church, even if you show up in your pajamas, just go to church. Oh, I've seen high schoolers do that, but this church doesn't have really high schoolers in it. We could have high schoolers in it, but I haven't, no one who's 70 years old is going to roll out of the PJs and show up to Sunday worship. They're just not. Maybe they might bring their little toddler or something like that. But yeah, this is interesting how you can think of rest through worshiping on Sunday. It should be a time of refreshment. So I hope Sundays mornings are more refreshing than stressful. I know a lot of times when people read the scriptures, they're like, what's going on here? Or when they're trying to figure out how to learn a new song, like, I don't know why we even have the song in the first place, but usually as you learn and through repetition, that's the other thing benefit about repetition is if you do it regularly, then you kind of know what to expect. You know when there's going to be a music, when you know when the pastor's going to speak, and there's some flow to it and it's familiar, and so you can kind of rest through that repetition. But if it was the exact same service every Sunday, I could see why people would be bored and not want to show up. So I try to mix it up so it's at least something a little different out of it, but not too different that they can't follow along. Yeah. Now the verse that Sean quoted, and it says, you shall do your work through the first 6 days and then rest on the seventh. I find it interesting there how what it's really saying is this doesn't work by you telling your people really what it's trying to say here is it doesn't work by you resting and everyone else has to work 7 days, especially if they're not Christian. The idea is no, everyone gets a 7th day of rest, even even your animals. We're in the country, so some people might have animals, although I don't know how hard they work, since it seems like the harvesters tend to do the work now and the other things, not the donkey. But
those were our harvesters.
Yeah, they were our harvesters at one point. But it's interesting, not even your workers. I guess when you say the alien, that's where you go, those who are not Jewish in this sense, but who work for you, but all people. So I know businesses tend to be open 7 days a week too, so I don't know, we kind of just focus on having, everyone seems to agree on we need at least 1 day of rest. But, any questions with all that? No? And so, let's see, next one. So the next one, I go back to the central thought. Sean, you want to go ahead and read the central thought And those 3 paragraphs underneath it are 3 sentences
74.
on 74. Yeah,
Central thought at the top.
I guess gotta put a page number on here. Huh?
God invites us to rest, reflect on his world, and receive his forgiveness in order to strengthen our faith. And when people today set aside time for rest, how do they spend that time?
Yeah, go ahead.
Read Luke 10:38-42. Why does Jesus commend Mary and not hardworking Martha?
Yeah. Before we get to that verse, at least there is a question in there that we get a chance to ask. So what do people usually spend Sunday or their one day of rest usually doing? What do you think? What other things? And it may not be wrong, or maybe it is wrong. But yeah, Alexis. So there's sleep. Yeah, you're definitely getting some rest if you're sleeping. What else might people do?
What did Dad do on the weekends when I was working? The only thing I could do. The other board. All that stuff
Yeah.
You guys don't help with.
Yeah, chores around the home. I think that one's definitely a big one. And sometimes sometimes I wrestle with figuring out how do I figure it out so I don't do chores on a Friday. 'Cause then I'm doing stuff I really don't want to do on my one day off, and then I'm back to work and stuff I do like doing, but I have to do it whether I want to or not still. But there are some, there are times when, like before I went on vacation, I just spent the whole day cleaning house. It just seemed like I was rushing in the morning, get out of bed to make sure I was hoping to get it done before noon, and ended up doing it all the way up to I think 5 o'clock dinner time. Because there was so much to clean and to take care of after the little one running around, and the landlord came by and he had his things he wanted to do, and my phone, that's right. My phone was having issues that day and I tried to get it solved, but I just had another issue. So it was a tough day. And I'm sure the scripture actually talks about having a tough day on Sundays. And ones where Jesus uses a parable where the Good Samaritan, there's a guy stuck in a ditch on the Sabbath day. So people as on their walk to church or to the temple, they are passing by, and different people pass by at different points. And one priest says, "I can't help you. It's Saturday. You should." In other words, the joke of it was, "You should have fallen in the ditch on some other day, on a Tuesday, not a Saturday. I could have helped you on a Tuesday, but you're going to be stuck in that ditch for another 6 hours. You fell on the wrong day." But then the Samaritan, who didn't really have a good understanding of who God was, said, "Sure, I can help you out." Jesus' whole point was the one who loves his neighbors to make sure everyone's being taken care of and doing well. So another example of an activity we could do on the Sabbath day, we can find in Luke 10:38-42. And so that's one of the Gospels. '17. Yeah. All right. Yeah, I think, yeah, Sean read last. So Alexis, go ahead. 38-42. The verses. Yeah, it's a long chapter.
Now as they went on their way, Jesus entered the village. In the woman named Martha welcomed him into her house. And she had a sister called Mary, who sat at the Lord's feet and listened to his teaching. But Martha was distracted with such serving. And she went up to him and said, Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to serve alone? Tell her then to help me. But the Lord answered her, Martha, Martha, you are anxious and troubled about many things, but one thing is necessary. Mary has chosen the good portion, which will not be taken away from her.
Yeah, and so I think well, I'll just paraphrase the question. So what is that good portion that Jesus is referring to there? Or maybe I should back up. So what was Martha doing?
Serving.
Yeah, so she was serving and she was, you could say, doing some housekeeping, working around the house, and you could probably see yourself doing that. If a friend comes over and it might be somewhat of a surprise visit, that you might want to start cleaning up some things or putting some things aside and start figuring out, well, who needs drinks, who needs something to eat, and all kinds of things. Maybe the TV's on, you might turn the TV off, and so on. Or maybe you're in the middle of a task, so you got to clean up, like making some meal or something. But then what was Mary doing?
Mary was listening to the Lord's teaching.
Yeah. Mary was listening to the Lord's teaching. So this might show up a picture here. So this is Jesus. This is Mary. Now they show her having a book. That's definitely, they didn't have books then. So they had scrolls.
He's all good.
But you get the idea that she was more focused on with the words of Jesus, kind of like how we have the words of Jesus here in our books. She's more focused on the words of Jesus rather than the housekeeping. But you can kind of see everything else that's going on here. They're in the kitchen and they got all kinds of things laid all over the place. And Martha, she looks like she's ready to cook a goose or something here. So they made it pretty obvious that there was work to be done around the house. Especially, I feel like when you're cooking, it just takes forever. When you're cooking, it takes at least a half hour to cook the meal. And then sometimes as little as 20 minutes to eat the meal, and then another half hour to clean up after everyone and put the leftovers away and everything. So it takes an hour and a half. So you could think, and they didn't have microwaves then, so, or refrigerators. So things were a little bit more difficult. So I could see things taking a long time. And so Martha's, according to Jesus, Martha's anxious, making sure everyone's taken care of. But Mary, she's just sitting and listening to Jesus. And so why do you think Jesus says that Mary's making the good choice? That's what the good portion is, that Mary is listening to Jesus. So why is Mary's response better than Martha's?
Because Mary is listening to Jesus and not Martha.
Yeah. That's essentially it, because maybe they are in the same room, and maybe she is overhearing everything. But I don't know about you, but I know we tend to be in a multitasking age. We got our cell phones and something else going on, but I'm sure you're not paying as much attention to someone when you have a cell phone in front of them than when you don't have a cell phone. Or likewise, when you're working on a task that's different than what everyone else is doing, you're probably just not paying attention as much. And so what I get from this text maybe we will read this. It'll be a good lesson. So, Sean, you want to go, notice there's a cross at the bottom. Well, kind of at the bottom where it gives a reference to the passage. So it's in the commentary section. I think you had it at the bottom of page 1736. Yeah, you see that cross? And so whenever you see that symbol in this book, that's almost like a mini devotional. So after you read that section, then you could say that's the life application part. So how do you respond after reading this text? And so have I used the word devotion before? I don't know. So when I say devotion, that means reflecting on God's word, really. So sometimes, like, we have portals of prayer at the front, where families are welcome to take one of those home, and each day there's a one-page devotional where people can read a little bit about God's word and have someone's thoughts reflecting upon that word and what it means and what we can take away from it. So here's what they say we can take away from it. Go ahead, Sean.
In contrast with Jesus the man for great works in the previous parable, 3:25-37. The story of Mary and Martha shows the importance of faith and rest in Jesus and His word. They were often so distracted that we neglect that matters much. God's word and sacraments, but we can never impress it. No matter how much we scramble, God clearly provides through faith in Jesus Christ. Our Savior, bear my anxieties and remove my distractions. I may receive your good portion from me. Amen.
Yeah. And so you notice there's a little dot in there. Well, I guess it's a big dot that's in the center of the line of the text. And that dot is to refer to, at least in this Bible, it's to refer to, that's when there's a little prayer. And a lot of times they're super short, and so they're not really memorable. And sometimes they're a little difficult to understand because they're trying to cram so much into one verse. But that's a little prayer after the devotion. And so what was said about before that is what we were just talking about. And we get distracted and that we're supposed to look forward to God's word. And it says a little bit about here that we're supposed to look at, remember the gift of faith through Jesus Christ. This devotional, this book will try to always bring back to what Jesus has done for us in the end. So it's a very good Lutheran Bible. And you have to kind of wonder, well, what was Jesus talking about? You know, was it something Martha thought, oh, I already know about all this, so I'm just gonna make sure everyone's being well taken care of, or was it something new and different that kind of like what you get the impression of Mary here, as she's pictured in this, that it's so thought-provoking that she has to sit and think about it some more and try to reflect on how does that fit, I guess you could say, if you think of that as a storybook, how does that reflect in the rest of the story? Or my story, how does that reflect in the rest of my own story? So it's interesting. But whenever you read the Gospels, you get a sense whatever Jesus said, it was something profound. Or even the disciples themselves just really never knew where Jesus was going. Nothing, you don't get the impression that Jesus was redundant in his teaching. I guess not redundant in the sense there was nothing new he had to say. He always had something new to what he had to say, even though he would repeat himself, but it wouldn't be boring, I guess you could say. It wouldn't be boring. Any questions with that? And so how does that relate to the seventh day? seventh, what, a day of rest, or the Sabbath day, it reflects on, well, what the reason why we come to worship is that we can reflect on God's word, understand why it applies to me, and yeah, we can just keep going. Keep going. Keep thinking. So I'm itching to ask these questions on this slide. Why it applies to me, and just all the benefits of this, including rest on the Sabbath day. And so the questions I've been wanting to ask is, well, if there wasn't a Sunday worship service, then when would you worship God?
Saturday?
Yeah, well, you could on Saturday. Do you think people would take the time aside to do some worship on Saturday? Maybe. Yeah, that's a good, safe Sunday school answer. But I think why the parents are laughing is because we know that, truth be told, if we're not in a church, it's really hard to be focused or even do our own devotion or even know where to start. I'm a trained pastor, and that's my job, to lead people into devotion. So me not going to a church on Sunday, I mean, or I guess you say a church going, because me not being a time where I'm a parishioner, me and you could think in the audience rather than leading, is important for me, because there's a time when I need to lead and make sure I myself am learning something new, rather than leading people all the time. So even though I'm trying my best to participate with you all, I definitely am probably feel more like Martha on a Sunday morning, making sure everything is taken care of, and a little anxious if things aren't, and troubled about many things, rather than sitting and enjoying with the good news. Although everything should be squared away, in the back of my mind, I'm always thinking, is everything going as they should? Am I singing the right notes? Are people following me? Is there anything that needs to change? If I had an organist, does she need to slow down? Does she need to be turned up? I guess you could say in the bigger the churches, the less responsibilities a pastor has at a given moment, because he's not the one guy, one man band running the show. He has more people helping him, but I'm sure he still has a lot going on in his head. So that's one thing on Sunday worship, why it's important to go, is so that you can make sure you spend time reflecting on God's word. And what's another thing is, what if you think someone came to Sunday morning worship service but really didn't want to be there? Do you think they would still get something out of the Sunday message? Something that was preaching, or maybe even a song that they played? Yeah, I think you get something out of that. I do remember when I was leading a high school youth group at one other church, there was some days I just, like, I don't know, forgot the musician's name. She calls it Manic Mondays. I want my Sunday because that's my fun day. I can't remember name, but anyways, usually, or some people say, well, I got to make sure I have my coffee on Sunday morning, because Saturday or Monday morning, because those are the hardest days. You got to get back in the routine of going to work, and your day of rest is over. And for me, usually the last thing I wanted to do was lead a high school youth group on a Monday night, because it was just how to get back on the treadmill, and I was struggling to keep up. But I was always refreshed afterwards. Youth group was more a kind of a playtime, but again, I had to lead and make sure people were following. But usually I felt refreshed afterwards, even though I was the one leading it, just because you're around your friends. I mean, that's another benefit about going to church is you're also around your friends. And so that's one of my next questions is, what about being in a community of other Christians? If you didn't go to church on Sunday morning, where would you find a support group or that have a Christian foundation? Some people may have a support group that aren't Christian, and some people do have closer friends that aren't Christian, even though they're Christian themselves. And it's interesting how people work and everything works. And I know some people just don't like Christians because they tend to be considered more judgmental and more up on your tail about doing the right thing all the time. And I don't get that impression from this church, though, thankfully. But of course, they're not going to do that in front of the pastor. Maybe maybe I'll let the pastor do that instead of others. But I don't know. I think that probably just comes with some experience of just going to church. But hopefully you find yourself among a group of people that will support you and again have a good Christian foundation and will lead you to do the right things. And you could even ask questions or even listen to how other people are responding to difficult situations. So yeah, another thing to think about. I know it's, truth be told, I think finding a good Christian community is getting harder and harder at the moment. I don't know if it's going to be easier. But that's just the nature of it. Like for me, and I think if I were to look for Christian peers, I'd probably think of people I went to school with in both high school, undergraduate, and I guess graduate, so seminary. Still got a connection, a group of people that I could ask them with. And there's other pastors I can lean on as well. But usually not so much lately. I mean, I can definitely lead on them, and I should, but I find they'd probably do a similar thing. Go to another pastor, start to ask the lady. I don't know. If it's stepping someone who's gotten education in Jesus, then see what's going on here. So yeah, what am I doing? I went to the next question, and really kind of the last one here. Which one? Question 50. So that's at the bottom of page 75. And well, there is a lot in here. I figured we'd be a little bit more refreshed by just reading with those two sentences in the first verse on the next page. It is Alexis's turn.
How do we fear and love God in keeping with God's commandments? We fear God and love God by not despising or neglecting His word. We despise and neglect God's word by A. Failing to gather together in worship to receive God's word in sacrament. Hebrews 10 verse 25. Do not neglect to meet together as is the habit of some, but encourage one another, and all the more as you see the day drawing near.
All right, thank you. And so it's interesting that Hebrews verse in chapter 10, when COVID hit, that was one verse that a lot of pastors were using as a reason why churches still ought to get together, although there's a pandemic going on. I know many people today wonder, was the pandemic all that bad? Did we really need to close the church? I think time will tell. I think people still really don't know what the answer to that was. But however, 100 years ago, when there was another severe flu, there was a time when for a couple weeks the church was closed and they just didn't worship on that Sundays. They just took that day out because they said it's just not worth having that flu spread. And sure, it did spread a little bit afterwards, after that 2-week shutdown, but my impression is it wasn't as severe. So when things got really bad, everything just shut down. But so I'd argue this verse isn't an absolute statement. It's not saying at all times death or life meet together. It's more of what it's saying here. It's a good habit. And some have a stronger habit not to neglect. And as I think you all can relate to, and again, it's not getting any easier with everything going on with sports and school and some people even work. They work on Sundays, and depending on the type of job. When it's talking about, as you see the day drawing near, the day they're referred to is, if you remember that Revelations picture, when you got God and Jesus, you got Jesus coming with all his angels to bring in the new heavens and the new earth. So that's really the judgment day. And I think, truth be told, as people get older, they kind of recognize their days are more numbered. They'll have less days to live as they did when they first started. And so they start reflecting, well, maybe I should be a little bit more concerned about my spiritual faith rather than just pushing it off and saying I can take care of that later. So I know one pastor says when he sees a church full of old people, he's happy, because it means they're recognizing that they're not going to live forever and that they need to make things right before they go see Jesus. So that's what's going on there. And again, when you meet together, you get to hear God's word, pour into each other, hopefully encourage each other and not tear each other down, and learn that in the end, it's really God still loves you, even through all the stuff that goes on throughout life, whether you've had a good day or a bad day or just busy day. And I'm looking for time to breathe. Hopefully Sunday morning worship, it does that. Now, I know I have to cram everything into an hour before I leave to the next church service. So sometimes I rush it a little bit more, but usually I'm able to figure out how to make it refreshing for everyone. So, any questions there? Yeah, as you see, there's more here, but I think we kind of either already talked about it in a different way without using so much Christian jargon, or we'll talk about it again later. So to review a little bit, here's my picture of the curb, mirror, and guide. So the curb, what are we supposed to be avoiding doing? Or what is the commandment that we're told to do? Oh, that would be our curb.
Remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy.
Yeah, keeping it holy, and holy meaning set apart. So I don't know how else to put it. These tables are set apart from that table, and if you saw that as like a workbench and this is a relaxing bench, well, that's obviously separate. So you have a work, and this is a place of rest. Or maybe even better, this room is a fellowship hall, a time to eat and a time for Bible study and discussion. Well, the sanctuary, it's usually just used for worship, and so that's set aside. It's apart from the rest of the building to be used specifically for worship services. So kind of similar idea. Again, we don't really use that in our everyday language, but I think that one can grow on you.
Yeah.
So that's what, and so how do we keep it holy? What's our guide here? What are the things we're supposed to do? And it could see here, what does it mean for an answer?
We should fear and love God so that we do not despise preaching in his word. but hold it sacred, but hold it sacred and gladly here and learn.
Mhm. There's that word gladly. Why do they even have to put that in there? Should it be gladly by default? But yeah, I know, like I said, some people are reading scripture, oh man, you gotta do this again. And there are some pastors who might be more redundant, and I could see even older people come and they're like, do I really want to go to church today? I know what the pastor's going to talk about it. I've been in church for 70 years. I can pretty guess what he's going to be talking about on Sunday morning. But again, hopefully we can learn something new from it, like we saw Mary in that picture that is thought-provoking. I hope that if others have to work a little extra hard to get their butt out in bed at 8:30 in the morning, that they have a good reason for it. That they find something to take away from it. And then the mirror, of course, would be to remind us where we have failed. You could say, hopefully, also find ways where we have come to worship, and I know there are times you have, and I'm sure you've learned something through it. And I know even during the COVID time, I gave you guys the packets to really hear God's word through videos first, and then reflect on it through the packets even some more as you're drawing and drawing pictures. You could say that's children's church. That's a children's way of learning God's word and doing it on the Sabbath day. Yeah, for adults, it's usually more focused on they really like the sermons. I think if people knew how to sing, they would sing more, but that's just not taught. I'm willing to teach it, but it just takes time, kind of like a piano. You kind of have to grow up with it, or any other instrument. Singing is your voice instrument, but you have to learn how to use it. Once you learn how to use it, you realize how many people, or how almost most people don't know how to use it.
So I don't do that on Sunday. When were you?
Yeah.
I know I don't sound good, but I'm singing it anyway.
Yeah, and there's a few others that do the same, whether it's in tune or not, but it's all a beautiful noise to the Lord. And some people even learn better. And the nice thing through songs is that you can usually remember it a little bit better, especially when you're singing that repeatedly. Usually you're probably not going to remember a pastor's sermon, probably even to the next Sunday.
Yeah.
You will be refreshed and you might learn something new, but you probably won't remember where you got it. So, pastors just have to live with that.
It's just a little gentle reminder that you're thanking for that.
Yeah. People, and of course, I'll give the glory back to God who gives me the answer. So now, one little tip before we do the review. What are these hands for? Well, let me ask you, what is the first commandment again? Without looking it up.
Don't look it up.
And the second? All right, so that's what I'm going to show you this. It was shown to me and it changed my world. So the scripture that says you're supposed to read God's word and bind it to your hands and your feet. And so in other words, remember it as in your whole being. And so your cheat sheet next time instead of the book can be our hands. So the first one, when you're pointing to number 1, which direction are you pointing to? Up. And where do we usually understand who is up? God is up. And so what are we supposed to do? What's the first commandment? You shall have no other gods. Yeah, because it's pointing up to God, and there's no other God to worship. 2, what letter do you see?
V.
Yeah, what word starts with V? What Christianese word? I guess you could say. It's not specifically Christian, but Christians would use it. Vain, a V for vain. You shall not use the Lord's name in vain. So, in other words, do not curse. And so 3, what other letter do you see? W. And what letter could start with W?
Watermelon.
Watermelon. What else? what might relate to the third commandment? Worship. Yeah, worship. So keep the Sabbath day holy. And then I'll go ahead and go through the other, we did 3, so there's 7. The other 7. So 4, you can put them together and put them up above your head and salute. You're supposed to honor your father and your mother. And then 5, you put them around your neck. Thou shalt not murder. Yeah, I'm not teaching you how to murder. I'm just saying you're not supposed to do it. Then on that, this one's probably a little easier if you're married, but if you can remember your ring finger. So you got 5, 6, you point to your ring finger. Thou shalt not commit adultery. In other words, thou shalt not do things outside of what marriage requires, is what's supposed to be done inside of marriage. And then 7. Oh, yeah, 7. There's there used to be an old law. If you stole anything, that your hand would be cut off. So you can cut off your hand. Thou shalt not steal. 8. I agree. But that's a whole nother story. So 8, you have bear claws. And so not supposed to bear false witness. Yeah, and then so 9, you could have them all up and kind of make a little house out of it in the middle. And so thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house.
Toilet paper.
Well, covet, not destroy it, yeah, or cover it. Covet mean being jealous, jealous in the sense where you're wanting to steal. You can't have anyone else's or something different. You got to have the exact same one. And then the last one, 10, you're not supposed to your neighbor's stuff. So donkey or is what the scripture says, or other things, or maidservant, that in other words, the neighbor's stuff. I'm not supposed to covet their. So think of you get your hands full of stuff, 5-finger discount or 10-finger discount in this sense. Yeah, so those are the 10 commandments. We'll go ahead and
No.
we'll review that one. Yeah, yeah.
Salute.
Mm-hmm.
Vain worship.
Mm-hmm.
Thou shalt not cut off hands.
Steal.
God.
Yeah, worship God. Mm-hmm.
What was 9? Oh, no.
No.
That's 8.
Oh, that's 8.
Oh, that's you shall not covet house.
Yeah. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house.
No stealing, and then
Well,
the weird basics.
well, let's do 10 again. Well, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's things. Yeah. Yeah, I think you guys got it. You guys got it. Yeah. So, yeah, we can review later. We got, like I said, 7 more weeks. So 7 more tries. So class review.
No, main idea.
So
Yeah,
let's see here.
Saturday was turned it into Sunday. Saturday was turned into Sunday. Yeah.
Okay, so what's the third commandment?
Oh yeah, worship.
Yeah, worship. Let's go ahead and start using those, because those are the ones we'll remember. So worship. Yeah, remember the Sabbath day. By keeping it holy. So this word, that's another interesting thing. This word remember doesn't mean remember it as in just remember that it's there and continue on with your life, but rather try to practice on it and don't forget that after day 6, you get your day of rest. So I guess I gave the answer. So how do we keep it holy? So which day is it on?
Saturday.
So, what day number do Christians use?
Sunday.
Sunday. It's done after 6 days, so it'd be the 7th day. So rest on the 6th or 7th day. So rest on the 7th day. What else are we supposed to do?
Worship.
Yeah, so worship God. The idea of attend Sunday worship services. Or what else happens in worship services? Well, how might we open up in song? Or how might we open up the service? Yeah, we can do time of prayer. We got prayer. What else is there? Sing. And what else goes on that day? What do I do? It's more uniquely. Yeah. So we'll say hear God's word. And we didn't talk about this one too much. That's also a time to confess sin. Doesn't have to be done on Sunday, but I'd probably even say the whole point of all this is to strengthen our relationship with God. Well, even though it's a day of rest, I don't like this word strengthen, but it's to strengthen our faith, it's to strengthen our relationship to God, reminding He's still on the throne and He still loves us, and God is good, and He has good things in store for us, and remind us how we're supposed to act. That's what we can tie that into confess and think. So if random fact, I think that this will tie it up. So do we want to use the garbage can one? Sure. Someone, what's this today? Garbage. They must have walked to school. Well, we are in the country, so I guess you could put it in the back of your truck. Your back to school day.
Now we got the festival. Thanks for it around. I'll be happy.
That's too much.
Yeah, well, let's go ahead and close in prayer. And then we'll go ahead and stop. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this discussion on keeping the Sabbath day holy and what it means. And so, Lord, help us to create space to spend time studying your word and to be reminded that you love us, and to remind us how to love our neighbor and how to honor you with our words and our actions and all that we do. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
And this.